Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I am seeing a few persons on. So welcome to the JCS Preferred Partner Webinar Series. We will kick off in a few minutes. So we're actually waiting for a few others to join on. So for the next few minutes, you're going to see a timer on your screen for 3 minutes, and it's a countdown just for you to go right ahead and grab your lunch, warm up your lunch if you haven't done so, get your coffee, fresh tea, whatever it is, and get comfortable, and then we will kick off in 3 minutes. So again, you will see a timer on the screen once you get on, and at the end of those 3 minutes, we will get started.
Sheryl-Ann.
Yeah.
Hello.
can't hear anything. Okay. I don't know what's happening. I cannot hear.
You weren't hearing me? Oh my word. I said so much. I said so much. I'm sorry about that, everyone. Well, let me go again. I'm not sure what would have happened, but good afternoon. I was babbling to myself for a good bit, but that's fine because I got to rehearse and to say it again. So welcome to our very first Lunch and Learn session in the Preferred Partner webinar series. My name is Sheryl-Ann Scott, and I'm the marketing officer here at JCS, and I'll be your host for this lunch hour chat. Now, our goal for this session and the others to follow within this series is really just to inspire conversations about digital transformation, whether within your business, organizations you may lead or just be a part of, and just in general in the society. So this afternoon, we're going to be deep diving into cyber insurance and recent trends in the cybercrime landscape. And leading out in this conversation will be our presenter, Lori-Ann Glasgow, and she is the General Manager for Marketing at Bcic. And Lori-Ann is a marketing professional with over 17 years of experience in advertising and consumer marketing, with a proven track record of strengthening global brands and accelerating revenue growth. She is responsible for developing and directing the execution of the company's marketing and branding strategy, as well as the planning and execution of marketing and promotional campaigns to support the achievement of the business targets while enhancing Bcic's brand and corporate identity. Lori-Ann has earned an MBA from Simon School of Business at the University of Rochester and a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of the West Indies. So what we're saying is that she is more than qualified to be leading out in this conversation this afternoon. And she's also joined by a member of her team, Dave Williamson. So you will see both. Well, really you'll be seeing Lori, but Dave will also be working in the background. This afternoon, one thing to keep in mind is, one, I would have dropped in the chat the live link to our webinar. So if there's anybody you know who may have wanted to be a part but didn't register, you can share that link with them. And also look out for the polls that Lori-Ann and Dave will be sharing so you can participate. Remember to drop your questions as well. We will be having a Q&A section at the very end. So turning over right to you now, Lori.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. I am so happy to be here. As you know, I am the General Manager of Marketing at Bcic. And one of my responsibilities under marketing is product development. So we've actually been working really hard behind the scenes on a new cyber insurance product. And before it's actually ready for release, it's imminently ready, but we wanted a chance to get in front of our target audience so we can really hear from you, understand what your needs are, and put that to work, put that into our product development process so that we can really target to your needs. Just a little bit of a caveat here. You guys are the IT professionals, I am not. So this is not going to be a hugely technical presentation, but you know, we have partnered with a number of big reinsurers that are kind of have a global presence and have been doing cyber insurance for a long time, so they know the cyber landscape. We've also partnered with a number of cybersecurity firms, and so we got from them a really rich idea of what's happening in the cyber landscape. And so we wanted to present that to you, as well as make a case for why cyber insurance should be part of your business continuity plans. So let's get started. The questions we'll reserve for the end, but I really would love it if you guys really participate in the polls that we're going to be having throughout the presentation, and then we can have a chat afterwards. So speaking of business continuity, if you didn't have a business continuity plan before COVID, I'm sure you have one now. And COVID has really just accelerated that I think, for most businesses. And as IT professionals, I don't have to tell you that cybercrime is a growing problem, and any business continuity plan would have, dealing with the fallout of a cyber attack as part of it, as a big cornerstone of it. And we've seen much more high-profile cyber crime coming to the front and dominating the news. Everybody would remember this from July, when 130 Twitter accounts were hacked, over 100,000 US in losses. Twitter was able to shut it down pretty quickly and prevent further losses, but it was still very embarrassing for them. Very high-profile people were caught in that. If you remember this, Ashley Madison, this was actually from 2015, with 40 million users worldwide. Their data was actually breached and publicized on the web. This was from an online dating website for married people. So obviously very, very embarrassing for those users. But unfortunately, the nightmare continues 5 years later, because cyber criminals are using that data that was breached 5 years ago to then go back and extort ransoms from those users. So really unfortunate that this is a 5-year nightmare that's ongoing. Then there's also the Wannacry ransomware attack. This was in 2017, if you recall. And this was a worldwide attack. It affected 200,000 computers in 150 countries, billions of dollars in losses. And this was really due to, devices that weren't patched with the Microsoft Windows patch, or end-of-life devices. So, really significant losses there. And then coming closer to home, I'm not sure if you saw this, but in July, the Gleaner reported that Build Expo, which is an annual 3-day expo, was actually targeted. So their website was taken over by cyber criminals, and a ransom of US $3,000 was demanded. Now, we don't know if they actually paid the ransom or not, but it certainly did disrupt their business significantly. Also, in early 2019, the Glean also reported that Jamaican banks face cyber theft, growing cyber theft problems, up to the tune of $4 million per month. And of course, banks don't like to publicize this, because it really does hit to the heart of a reputation. It's a reputational risk for them. So they don't really like to talk about it, but it's a growing problem for them. And in fact, Digital Business did a research. They did some research over their 300 and odd clients in Jamaica, Trinidad, and Barbados to find out, what was happening during COVID. And all the businesses reported an increase and a spike in cyber crime and hacking activity over the pandemic. So this is a growing problem, right? You'll see your first poll coming up. Have you ever experienced a cyber attack? So let us know. And this graph is actually from Interpol. The Interpol has actually showed that this is the increase in the type of cyber threats since the COVID pandemic started. Can you look at it? I mean, it's 60% increase in phishing and scam and fraud, 36% in malware and ransomware. So these are really significant increases. In fact, and this is over during a pandemic, a worldwide pandemic. So the cyber criminals are not looking at COVID-19 as a
Hi, Lori. I am not sure what would have happened just now, but it seems we would have lost Lori-Ann. Seems she would have dropped off just now. So we're going to give her a few minutes to jump back on. We will give her a few minutes. Y'all know connections aren't great these days. So I'm hoping she'll get back on in a few minutes. So I do apologize for that technical difficulty. So I do apologize again for that difficulty. We will definitely try to get Lori on in a few minutes. In a minute, I will, in the meantime, just play a quick little jam so we can maybe listen to a bit of music and you won't all just jump off. So do give us a minute while we rectify this issue. Sure. Uh-oh.
How long I was talking?
All right, Lori, are you back?
I'm back. Sorry, guys. How long have I been away?
I was there trying to be a DJ, which I'm not. So I'm glad you are back. I was starting to worry that I would have to start playing music for All right. So right back. You can go right back to your presentation. We do apologize and thank everybody that stayed on.
We seem to have.
Lori, I'm not sure if you're hearing me, but I would recommend that you turn off video for now and just try to share screen. Hopefully that helps. Lori, we're not hearing you. We don't have any audio. Lori, we're not hearing you. Oh no. We have lost Lori again. Her connection is clearly not very strong this afternoon. Dave? Okay, she's rejoined.
Okay, Cheryl, are you hearing me now?
I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, great. So sorry about that, everybody, since I had a little bit of an internet interruption. You know, these things happen. Okay, right. So let's jump back in. So I was talking about the banks. They, you know, early last year, it was reported that banks are facing cyber theft up to $4 million per month in losses. And in fact, Digicel Business did a survey of their clients, over 300 clients across Jamaica, Trinidad, and Barbados, and it, you know, all of their clients really talked about the increase in cybercrime and hacking activity that had spiked because of the pandemic. In fact, Interpol, the FBI, and cybercrime studies from cybersecurity providers have reported increased incidences of cybercrime since the start of the pandemic. Can we go to the next slide? So this graph is actually from Interpol, and it shows the increases in the actual cyber threats from during the start of the pandemic. So if you look at it, 60% increase in phishing, scam and fraud, 36% in malware and ransomware, and this pandemic has really shown that cyber criminals are not easing us up. They see this as a real opportunity to make more money. And in fact, if you take a look at the WHO, the World Health Organization, they came out to say that their incidences of cyber attacks actually grew fivefold since last year, versus last year, since the start of the pandemic. And the WHO is on the forefront of fighting the pandemic. If anybody you think would be kind of exempt, it would be them. But cyber criminals have not eased that up at all. The FBI has also warned that business email compromise fraud has increased during the pandemic, and especially in terms of related to procurement of personal protective equipment, PPE, medical equipment like ventilators, and other supplies or equipment in short supply because of the COVID pandemic. And Google's threat analysis group, TAG, also says it has detected more than 12 state-sponsored hacking groups using the coronavirus to craft phishing emails and attempting to distribute malware. So this is a growing problem. And the pandemic has really exacerbated it. But even before then, cybercrime was a growing problem. If we can go to the next slide, we can see that, some of the trends that we've seen is one in technology. Technology will really increase the efficiency of everybody, but it's also including the speed and scope of cyber attacks. So if you look at things like the Internet of Things, that's billions of devices with varied security profiles, which means billions of possible breach points. And it's going to be it's monitoring of all those IoT devices will be a challenge, especially as we move into 5G, which the US and the UK are rapidly moving towards now. So it's going to be a continued problem. Artificial intelligence is also being used by cyber criminals to identify targets, identify and exploit weaknesses, and to cover cyber criminals' tracks, which then allows them to increase their level of automation and efficiency with which they carry out their attacks, and in turn, bigger losses for businesses. Deepfakes are also going to be used much more. We're not ready for this yet.
One of them that just keeps coming up is that hackers are making a killing from secret payments by major companies. But what would you do if every computer in your office was hijacked by hackers? That's what happened to a Norwegian company recently, and they faced a dilemma: to pay or not to pay.
The hackers attacked here late.
Video. It's running. Let's see, just remote it.
You hear a lot of rumours doing this job, and one of them that just keeps coming up is that hackers are making a killing from secret payments by major companies. But what would you do if every computer in your office was hijacked by hackers? That's what happened to a Norwegian company recently, and they faced a dilemma: to pay or not to pay.
The hackers attacked here late at night. Computers everywhere changed simultaneously. The message: pay us or you'll be locked out forever. For this aluminium producer, it was a disaster.
Down here on the factory floor, where these heavy-duty machines are working hand in hand with people, every minute counts. You can see why the hackers wanted to target a place like this.
Everything was affected, even the computer inside this clock. And it wasn't just here, it was at the company's 170 other sites around the world. 35,000 employees forced to use pen and paper.
In most sites, production was kept going just about, but it's this person's job to decide what's coming in and what's going out. And of course, without the computer,
they had no idea. 5 weeks on, they're still recovering. There were people from sales who were drafted in to do production line work. There were people from finance making sandwiches for the teams. Everything in the company was turned upside down. For days, Olov managed to keep his plant going manually. He relied on the skills of long since retired workers and long since forgotten about paperwork. Well, this is the paperwork for only 2 weeks of orders. It's exactly the instructions that the machines need to build the things that they've got to produce here, but they've had to dig these out from storerooms, basements, because of course this is what would have been inside the computers. And now look at this, all of these files. At the company's global headquarters in Oslo, they're still rebuilding their systems.
As people are being attacked, we have to shut down the entire network. 40 countries, 22,000 PCs. We're still very much recovering. We don't trust anything.
The hacker's note that appeared on company computers was typical of a ransomware attack.
Your files are encrypted with the strongest military algorithms. Without our special decoder, it is impossible to restore the data.
The virus is called Lokagoga, different but just as devastating as the infamous Wannacry ransomware that affected the NHS 2 years ago. For a large fee, probably hundreds of thousands of pounds, they would restore the company files. But Hydro never tried to negotiate and refused to cave in to the cybercriminals.
I think in general it's a very bad idea to pay. It fuels an industry. It's probably financing other sorts of crime.
But there are plenty of companies who are paying in secret. This goes against the advice of pretty much every law enforcement agency in the world, so no one wants to talk about it. But there is one firm happy to speak. They're here in Connecticut, in the US, and they specialize in negotiating ransoms between the victims and the hackers. Coveware is just one of a handful of companies that have started helping victims navigate this murky world of cyber extortion.
This group will divvy up 80% of the Bitcoin, 20% goes to the developer. Maybe they go back to the dark market, buy some more, and...
Bill and his company are incredibly careful about the details hackers know about them.
We're dealing with cyber criminals at the end of the day. And so I think it's a healthy amount of paranoia to ensure the security of our employees and our company.
They're understandably cagey about which companies are using their service.
Are these big companies?
Some of them, yeah.
What, tens of thousands of employees?
Yep, some thousands, some public companies, some name brands.
Industry analysis suggests that overall, ransomware attack numbers are actually in decline. But some estimates suggest attacks on businesses have gone up 500% in the last year. And as hackers go after bigger targets, the ransoms are going up.
We always want them to be as small as possible or to not happen. But we recognize that when a company needs to pay and it's a large number, then that's what needs to happen, and that can be 7 figures.
How do you feel when you pay 7 figures?
Not good. It's not a good outcome. Everybody recognizes it's not a good outcome, but you're dealing with life and death of the company in some of these cases where that has to happen.
There's no doubt it's a major dilemma, especially when you look at what happens to companies like Norsk Hydro that don't pay ransoms. Recovery for them has so far cost more than £45 million. Clearly, the easy way out can be tempting.
So as we can see, ransomware can be really devastating to a business. When I look back at the poll, we see that 50% of you have actually experienced a cyber attack. So those 50% who said no, consider yourself lucky. I'm sure the other 50% of you wish they were in that position. So if we can go to the next slide. Right, so ransomware to pay or not to pay. So this is not an easy question. It's really going to be a business decision. So, law enforcement will always say, don't pay. We don't want to encourage this type of business. It may go to fund terrorism, etc. And if that's the principle on which your business would like to hold tight to, that's fine, and then you go through. But it really is a business decision. It really is a business decision, and you have to look at all angles. Attackers are becoming much more sophisticated. They tend to once they get access to the network, they tend to look around a little bit first. They want to identify the critical assets that will really interfere with their core business functions. They want to seek out and target backup systems so they can undermine your ability to recover. They want to really research your financial situation so they know exactly what the impact of an attack will be and how much you can actually pay. They also might want to look at exfiltration of your internal data before they encrypt it. So that may be posting sensitive information on websites that are available to the public, releasing part of the stolen data as kind of a warning, and with further releases as the ransomware demand grows up. In fact, many victims of ransomware do have backups and they can recover, but they actually end up paying the ransom because they don't want it to actually get out. So, one of the more, most obvious example is a bank, which we spoke about earlier. So to pay or not to pay, what do you do? So you really have to look at two parallel ways of doing things. So one is to bring in a ransomware specialist and start communication with the attackers and negotiate for a deal. Right? So don't think that you can't negotiate. You can negotiate, but you really need a specialist to help you. And if possible, validate the decryption key. While you're doing that, in parallel, you're also doing your forensic investigation. You're looking at all of these systems that are affected. Are they critical systems to your business? And look at your ability to recover from backups. And then it becomes a business decision, right? So consultation between the business, your insurer, if you are insured, legal counsel, law enforcement, and the cyber experts who then make a decision. So it may be that actually you can recover from your backup. It will take a relatively short amount of time to recover with very little cost. And then that decision is easy to make. Yes, you would say, no, we're not going to pay the ransomware, we'll recover on our own. However, it may, due to the amount of data, it may take a long time to recover, months and months, and you may not have the time, and the business may not be able to do that. But if you do then decide to pay the ransom, it's also not an easy decision. There are other things that you have to consider. One is, and this is where a ransomware specialist will help, is understanding what the history of that group is, because there are some groups that have a history of not providing a fully functioning decryption key. So you want to make sure that the decryption key will be fully functioning. There's also the possibility that the group may have left a back door so that they can come back to you for another ransomware request. So, there's really no one size fits all answer. It's really a matter of going through, using the security experts, and going through the processes and looking at both sides of the coin. You can go to the next slide. So when we do talk to our large reinsurance partners who have been doing this for years and have loads of experience, they do say to us that when clients come to them, a lot of the times they'll come after a cyber breach and they'll say, we thought we were protected because, so we call these the kind of myths that exist. One myth is that if you have your antivirus solution and it's all updated, you're protected against an attack. And that's great. Having antivirus is definitely important, but it can be circumvented. Cyber attackers often obfuscate files in such a way as to beat the antivirus scanning. And even though antivirus solutions do often update to detect this, there's always that window of opportunity when the criminals will attack. So you also have to think about the scanners only pick up malicious content. So if an attacker has gained high enough access to your system through a social engineering, for example, they may be able to just disable the antivirus, and then you're rendered vulnerable. Next slide. Another myth that we heard is, automatic software updates are, will protect us. Well, great. It's great if you have it, but companies also really need to look at their internal patch processes to ensure protection. I know IT departments are stretched. You have loads of projects going on. You're pulled in all of these different directions. So it's very easy to kind of maybe deprioritize or put on the back burner implementing these patches. But, if we see from the most recent example, the Citrix vulnerability back in last year, there was a lag between when the vulnerability was first reported and when the patch was released. And cyber attackers really exploited that time to target vulnerable companies who had not put in the patch. So it's really important that there's a patch, that there's a robust patch update procedure. And finally, the third myth is that, we're protected because we have a backup. Well, a robust backup plan is definitely the cornerstone of a disaster recovery plan due to a cyber attack. But, ransomware groups will actively search for a company's backups before starting their encryption. So, because if they lock you out of your backup, that only improves their negotiating position. You have nowhere else to go. So, backups can also be compromised if an attacker plants what we call a time bomb, a malicious file in the backup, which is then executed after the initial recovery. So all of these things just goes to show that there's just no one panacea to cybersecurity. So what do the experts say? There are a few things that you should definitely be making sure that you're doing, and I'm sure you're all doing them now. But one is do the basics very well. Identify every device in the organization, backup data offsite, learn from each cyber incident or breach. Practice regular security evaluation, making sure you have additional security and audit requirements are in place, and have crisis management services available if you do need them. Second is to follow a framework. So one of the frameworks that we liked was the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology. They built a framework around 5 imperatives: 1, identify; 2, protect; 3, detect; 4, respond; and 5, recover. And that provides a really useful checklist for you. Also, don't be penny wise and pound foolish. Now, this may be preaching to the choir, but there really needs to be an appropriate proportion of your IT budgets dedicated to cybersecurity. And I'm sure that's a fight that you have every year with your CFOs and your CEOs, but it's really important. Also, invest in training. Training for your employees is probably one of the, I think, most maybe underutilized tools. Human beings are the weakest link in any cybersecurity program. And regular training helps to drive not only employee awareness, but employee vigilance. And that's really key, especially as we see business email compromise going up, phishing attacks, etc. You also get buy-in from the top down. When executive management is highly engaged in cybersecurity policies, outcomes do tend to be better. And finally, build resilience. So no business will ever be completely secure, but you can build resilience by preparing for a breach, testing for it, having the capability to respond quickly and effectively. And we'll talk a little bit about this later, but a cyber insurance policy really can help you do that. It's through certainty of cover, whether it's also putting you in touch with specialists and expertise that can help you with risk assessment, crisis management, and training. So now we're going to do another poll for you to respond to. But we also want to talk to you about, why cyber insurance could be for you and be right for your business. If you get back up the slides. So while the slides are being brought up, I'll just start talking. So, if your company holds a large volume of personal data, collecting, processing, storing large volumes of personal data, whether it's for your customers and your employees, really does put you at risk of a cyber attack. Cyber insurance can help to cover those costs. If you were not able to comply with, if you need to comply with certain regulations, such as the Data Protection Act, which is imminently going to come in, there are notification requirements in that if there is a breach that affects your employees or customers, and cyber insurance can really help offset those costs. If your company is reliant on technology to operate, that's also a red flag. Increased use of technology to operate really creates a cyber risk. So think about if the technology were to become unavailable because of an attack, what would the impact on the business be? And could that be mitigated through cyber insurance? Cyber insurance is really protection for you and your business when cybersecurity fails, because network security may be resilient and robust, but it's not impenetrable. And when security fails, cyber insurance is an important safeguard to have. It's also built-in incident response, right? So, if most cyber insurance policies can connect you with the right team of specialists to respond to a breach, should that happen. Particularly, this is important for small and medium sized businesses who really wouldn't have immediate access to these kind of firms. It also gives your business an independent view of your security profile. So, a standard profile, a standard policy, to get pricing for it, you'll have to go through an assessment, and I'll talk more about the assessment in a little bit. But that will give you kind of an independent look in at your cyber security profile. Okay, so it seems that most of you are not really sure at all if you do have a cyber insurance policy. So we need to talk. Okay, how are we doing with those slides? All right, I'm just going to continue because we're running out of time, and I just want to make sure that we have enough time for questions. So what is covered under a cyber insurance policy? It's privacy liability. So This is liability arising if there is a breach and there's unauthorized disclosure of customer or employee personal data that could result in potential losses. And that would be third-party liability losses. So, for example, if a customer were to sue you because their data was put out there. Network security, right? So it covers the business in the event of if there's a failure, which could include a data breach, malware, cyber extortion, demand, and ransomware, and business email compromise. It also covers network business interruption. So if there is a breach or an incident and the business's network or the network of a provider that the business relies on to operate goes down because of a cyber incident, the business can then recover its lost profits and expenses during the time that the business was impacted. Errors and omissions. So this is where if you do have a cyber event, but because of it, you were prevented from fulfilling a contractual obligations, or delivering service to your customers, then this could be covered under your policy as well. And cyber fraud. So illegal or illegitimate financial transfers as a result of social engineering, like phishing emails. It's all covered. So if you think about all of the costs that you may have to incur because of a data breach, think about if your business would be able to dip into its reserves and pay for those. And some of those costs are, for example, forensic investigation. So there's a breach. You need to do a full forensic investigation to understand the scope of the breach, how far the attackers have gone, what your backups are looking like, etc. Notification to affected parties. You may have to set up a call center to deal with all of the fallout. Crisis management. If it becomes public, you may have to hire a crisis management and PR firm. You may have to, you may be taken to court because a consumer is aggrieved because of the breach. You may actually, like I said before, lose business because of it. So you have to recover your lost profits. Of course, and then cyber extortion, and then the cost of actually getting back to business, or data restoration, and system recovery. So you have to think about all of those things. If you're able to self-fund that, or would your business kind of fold under the pressure? 60% of small businesses that incur a data breach actually go out of business between 6 months to a year after the breach. So what's the cost? No, there's no easy answer to this. It's really going to be dependent on the business. And that's why, a cyber insurance policy, a good cyber insurance policy, will be tailored to your business. But we look at a couple of things. We look at your cyber exposure. So what business sector you're in, what kind of revenue you have, where you're located, the type and quantity of data that you're storing, the type of cover that you've requested, and if you've had a past policy before, what is your cyber event history and loss history, and what are the framework and standards that you have in place. And then we also look at your information security profile, right? So what are your information security policies? How do you deal with asset management and security? What does access control to your system look like? Cryptography. What does, in terms of your system acquisition, development, and maintenance, how does that look? And compliance throughout the business, what does that look like? So when we look at the combination of the exposure and the information security assessment combines into our risk rating. And this risk rating value really shows how adequately the business is protected. And that's used to give you a price for what the insurance will cover. So there is a poll up, I do believe also, where do you think your employer or business will gain the most value from a cyber policy? So love it if you just fill out that poll. But finally, I just wanted to give a little shout out to BCIC and talk about why you should choose BCIC. You know, we are Jamaica's #1 general insurance company. We've been around since 1962, have a solid reputation in the industry. We've also, you know, we are also one of the most highly capitalized insurance companies in Jamaica. And that's allowed us to cover, you know, huge losses like Hurricane Gilbert, Hurricane Ivan, and many other huge losses over the years. You know, we will really help you to tailor the right cyber insurance policy for your business. We've partnered with A-rated reinsurers with solid global experience in cyber insurance. And we've also partnered with top local cybersecurity firms, including access to international cybersecurity firms and their expertise if we so need it. So really thank you for your time. You know, apologies again for the technical difficulties that we experienced, but I am so grateful that you've stuck with us. And now we're going to open the floor for questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Lori-Ann. So we are now going to open up for questions. I got a little, somebody messaged me earlier to ask if they would be able to come on air with their questions. No, so just type those questions in the chat. Do we have any questions for Lori-Ann about cyber insurance, particularly something that was mentioned earlier, or really what BCIC is doing? Any questions? I'll give you a few seconds to type. All right, well, I'm not seeing any questions coming in, so I'm guessing folks are digesting all of the content that was shared, and they will reach out to you or someone else at BCIC if they do have any questions. So we are going to wrap up, and I want to say again, thank you so much, Lori-Ann, for this presentation. It was timely. It is timely because we are in the month of October, and it's celebrated globally as Cyber Security Awareness Month. So I really think this was a timely topic. And if there are no other questions, who is the, okay, Nastasia sent a question. Who is the contact at BCIC? Who can persons reach out to if they're interested in learning about the packages that you have, the plans you have for cyber insurance, Lori?
So that's me. That would be me. So you can reach out to me. Should I put my email in the chat?
Yes, go right ahead. Put it in the chat. So you guys can reach out to Lori-Ann. Any other questions from anybody else? All right, so Lori has dropped her email address there. And if there are no other questions, thank you again, Lori-Ann and Ave, for joining us this afternoon during our lunch break, really to share. Okay, we're getting questions. I'm jumping ahead of myself. I need to allow you guys to type. So another, particularly interested in what is available in relation to DPA.
Right. So, I mean, the Data Protection Act, we've been studying that, and we are actually putting, developing our products around it. The difficulty with the DPA is that it's not super specific, for example, around the costs, what the regulatory fines may be. It's very kind of vague and open-ended. It's kind of leaves it open for further review by the minister, I think. So But what is clear is that there is there are obligations, definitely in terms of notifications to aggrieved customers who may have their data privacy breached, and there's also the need, definitely the need for training of employees about how to handle and treat with data. And I think coming to us for a cyber insurance policy and doing the risk assessment with us, you'll definitely be able to see where the gaps are in your security profile, and we can put you onto vendors that would be able to help you with filling those gaps. And I think training is one of the biggest gaps that will probably be apparent, because the DPA is very new to us. And so, we really have to, apart from, maybe banks that already have systems in place to deal with confidentiality of data. I know even internally at Bcic, we've had to start to look at how we can train our employees to treat with customer data very differently. So training is going to be a big part of that. And a cyber insurance policy can help you.
All right. Thank you for that response, Lori. Any other questions? I'm going to give 30 seconds for any other questions. All right. If there are no other questions, I can definitely again thank you, Lori-Ann and Dave, for joining us during your lunch break as well to share this information. I'm certain I haven't gotten all the comments because folks were a bit quiet, but I'm certain it was well appreciated and has given everyone a lot to think about. I think for them to go back to their different organizations or whatever teams they may lead out in to see how they can look at whatever approaches they may have, whatever methods they may have to cybersecurity, and then see if there is room, if they haven't not identified their cyber insurance plans, to actually reach out to Bcic and also just do an evaluation of what might actually be working for them, but may not work for the future. We're not sure. So thank you so much for sharing this information. And as we go, I want to point out two particular announcements. So firstly being, join us next week for another session. We'll be joined here by Erica Simmons, and she will be coming to us from IEEE Innovation Nation, Jamaica. And that will happen on Friday of next week, so October 23. So you will look out for more information about that. And of course, just continue to follow us on social media. Remember to subscribe to our mailing list because we have a lot coming up, particularly for Bcic 2020, and that happens November 17th to the 19th, 2020. So look out for more information about that and register. There will be information going out today about that. So look out for it, share it with your organizations, friends, family, whomever, so we can really advance digital literacy and culture as our theme will be for this year. So thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your maybe minute or two for your lunch and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having us.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.